buttercups and bowlies. I'm here today doing my first collaboration with Carol from My Blessed Nest. I'll put a link to her shop below. If you have not watched her channel, please watch it. She's so adorable and she has the cutest stuff. Her style is just, for me, it just makes me want to go visit her. The collaboration is I Love Thrifting, and she wants us to talk about the nitty-gritty, the who, what, when, where, and why we thrift. I think there's a common ground between all of us that like to go thrifting, and I really thought about this question. I took it really to heart. I hadn't really thought about it because I've done it for so long, and there's really one main answer, and that is Auntie Angie. My Auntie Angie, she was my great aunt. She was born in 1916. She was one of my grandfather's sisters, and their parents were the first generation immigrants from Sicily, and I think 9 of their 10 children, yes, 10 children, including my grandfather, my Auntie Angie, were born in California. And my great-grandfather built a house in the 20s on the central coast of California, one of those stucco, adobe style Spanish kind of bungalow houses, kind of the Spanish nod to what were the earlier houses, the craftsman style bungalows, which I now live in. I'm so blessed. Anyway, I spent probably most every day of my life in that house where my Auntie Angie lived with the youngest of those 10 children, my Auntie Rose, and they lived together their whole lives. They never married or had children. They had family. And I spent, like I said, almost every day of my life there until I was in high school, and I still spent many, many days and holidays there, even well into my adulthood. I'll put some pictures in so you can see my family. My great uncles were all fishermen, and my grandfather as well. Yeah, so holidays were a spectacular event there. It was nothing to have 30 or more people, all the extended family, cousins. It was just so wonderful. So I think I've spent most of my life wanting to recreate that loving family feeling that I had there. And even at a young age, I think I knew that that place and time and people, those people would not always be around. So that being said, the earliest memory that I have of thrifting, so to speak, I was pretty young. I was about 4 years old, and it's kind of a very sketchy memory, as one would have at 4 years old. And there was a garage sale across the street from where I live with my mother. And we went there. I saw a small brown teapot. I knew it wasn't a child's teapot. I think the color brown probably gave that away. Brown was not a popular children's toy color. And I wanted to, she gave me some money to pick out some little things. I have no idea how much money or what garage sale things probably cost then. I wanted to buy that teapot for her. And I did, and I paid for it and I gave it to her. It was just a little brown ceramic teapot. Now I would bet that it was probably a piece of restaurantware, not vintage at the time, certainly vintage now. So that's the earliest memory that I have of that. So my love for vintage domesticity, as I call it, really sits with my Auntie Angie and my family. It was all about family and cooking, so anything having to do with the kitchen and food and the household, I love, love, love. So I'm gonna show you a few things that belonged to my auntie or were given to me by her, or that I was able to acquire, or that I acquired myself trying to recreate some of the pieces of that house from my childhood. So the first thing I'm gonna show you, many of you have probably seen these before. I think they're still pretty popular. They used to be quite valuable about 20 years ago. I don't know what the market is now, and I would never, ever sell it. So this, you all know this is a cookie jar. See her little feet? On the back of her apron. This is a Shawnee pottery. I think they were out of Ohio. And this was the Dutch girl. I think she had a name, Jane or Jill or something like that. I'm really not sure. There were kind of different styles, and they're worth more or less depending on how adorned she is. Some were more plain. Mine has a tulip on it. Some were even different colors and more ornate. But it doesn't matter because this one is mine and I love her so much. My grandmother, my mother's mother, who died when my mother was just a wee lass, so I never knew her. She gave this to my Auntie Angie, and it was many, many years in her wonderful kitchen where I spent most of my life. And she wanted me to have it one day, and she gave it to my mother when I was probably a teenager, and my mother kept it for me. And when I was a grown woman and married and started having children, she gave it to me. And my mom wrote a little note, and I keep it in there. And it says, from Auntie Angie to Deanna. And I just keep that in there because not that I would ever forget. Now, it also has salt and pepper. I don't know if my grandmother also gave her these or if she acquired them later. I don't really know, but they are darling. Same company, they don't have the corks. And I love her. Yeah. And I always have her where I can see her. She's in my china cabinet. And I just love her. So, along with my Auntie Angie was my Auntie Rose, who I told you about. She was born in 1920, and while my Auntie Angie stayed home and looked after me and other children, she worked. I didn't see her around as much during my childhood, but she was the baker. And let me tell you, when Christmas rolled around, she would get out her mixer, and who knows how many pounds of flour were stored in that house. She would make hundreds, and that is no joke, hundreds of Italian cookies, biscotti, fig cookies, sesame cookies, the little white wedding cookies, and countless others that have Italian names, which I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce for you. But this bowl, this Pyrex Beauty, which you saw when I made my depressing cookies. I don't know if you can see the mark on there. This is the early mark. This bowl is from the 1940s, the early set of the Pyrex bowls. And this was hers. This was my Auntie Rose's. For some reason, I ended up with this bowl. I don't know what, no one wanted this bowl. So these cookies, she would put in these giant pickle jars, which sat on the side, on the floor, on the side of their stove in this kitchen. And it just seemed like they lasted forever. It seemed like they just went on for months. Probably the truth is they were emptied out and refilled by her making fresh batches. So whenever people would come to visit at my aunt's, she would set out a plate of cookies. And during the holidays, when we had our big family gatherings, we would have dessert after dinner, and not just dessert, which were cakes and pies and things like that, but we also had a plate full of cookies, which we all loved and adored and continue to make to this day, many of us. So I always wanted one of those big jars, and I did not acquire one that belonged to my auntie. So I acquired my own, and I don't remember where I got it. I think I got it at an estate sale, and mine is, what does it say? Farman's Pickles, the King Pickle. Here's the bottom of the jar. I don't have any idea how old it is. It's not, my aunt had ones that were even larger than this. I don't know how big this one is, but I'll make some biscotti and I'll put it in here. Nothing lasts in my house. I have a lot of children and they're grown and they're home and they eat a lot of cookies and they like biscotti. So mine's always empty. Oh, also in the kitchen, of course, the utensils and the wooden spoons and the linens, the dish towels. And so one of the people that I love to go thrifting with is my cousin Alicia, and the thing that we go ape for are linens. I have so many linens, tablecloths and dresser scarves and doilies and dish towels and handkerchiefs, anything you please. It's really a bit of an issue sometimes, but I was going to show you some linens that belong to my auntie. They of course embroidered and tatted and did things like that, but I really don't know which ones were theirs and which ones I got at garage sales and thrift stores. So I will just show you some of the ones I have. This one I do know my mother embroidered when she was a young woman or girl, and I know that because she told me. So there's that. Pretty little dish towel. In their house, of course, there was no dishwasher. So when we had these huge family gatherings, there was a lot of dishwashing done. And I loved that, hanging out in the kitchen with my cousins and doing dishes. There's something really special about that. Here's a cute one. Did this belong to my aunties? I have no idea. Don't know, but I use it all the time. Here's another one. I think this one did come from their house. I don't really know, not really sure. So a lot of women of the day would embroider and then add their tatting or lace onto the bottom, and this one is a pretty purple. And here's a doily. I have drawers full of these. I don't really have colored ones like I see some people thrifting. Those are really pretty. I really like the colored ones, and I would certainly snatch them up if I ever came across them. So some of these were hand done. I don't know if that one was or not. There's that one. So in the living room, there was a fireplace and built-ins that spanned the whole room around the fireplace. And I feel like one side was my Auntie Rose's side, and the other side was Auntie Angie's side. And Auntie Rose had teacups, lots of teacups, cups and saucers, those kinds of fancy teacups, which we never used. And Auntie Angie had figurines and things that people had given her, books, little things like that. So I did get some teacups, but I did not bring one out to show you. Here are the things that were my Auntie Angie's, which I loved so much and was very blessed to have acquired. This is just, those are just fake flowers. This is a little planter that was in there. Don't you just love those soft colors, the green and the kind of pinkish brown. Look at her pretty eyes, her pretty face. What do you think? She's probably from the 1930s. And there's no marking on the bottom that I can tell. But she's got her little shoe. She's kind of like the cookie jar. Anyway, I just think she's adorable with her little scarf, and she just makes me think of my Auntie Angie. And this green color was a color they had in their kitchen for many years, painted cabinets. And yeah. This other little girl was also in the cabinet, and I remember waiting for my mom to pick me up and looking at this. She never came out of that cabinet, and she's a little worse for wear. Just the little sister and her sibling going to bed. There was a candle here, which has long since broken off. And then sadly, in my care, her arm broke off, and I've done a very lousy job trying to glue it together, but I think I can pay more attention to that and get that fixed. So she is marked Western Germany, Bavaria, Freundel. I think that company, similar to Hummel and those companies, made lots of cute little figures like this. Next item I'm going to show you, I remember, and you can notice it in a couple of the pictures, maybe it's just in one of the pictures that I've put in. This was always in the house, and it was moved from place to place, displayed in different parts of the house. Sometimes it was down low, sometimes it was up high, sometimes it was in a cabinet. And while pretty much everything in that house was always used in every corner in terms of, you know, kitchen and plates and silverware and things like that, this was never used. And probably I'm guessing one of the reasons it was never used is the same reason why I don't know anyone else who would use it, including myself, but I really love it. It was my great grandmother's, and it was always in my auntie's house. And that is this Carnival Glass pitcher and bowl. And this is how it was always displayed. They don't believe they're meant to be like that. I don't know my Carnival Glass. I know some is nicer than others. I think this is a very common pattern. There really wasn't any that I remember. Maybe my cousins remember it differently than I do. I don't remember there being much depression glass in the house. Yeah. So, you know, this is a hard color to use in your house, this orange color. It's really pretty. I like the shiny Carnival Glass. A lot of people don't like it. My daughter doesn't like it. It doesn't really go with anything. I love primary colors, and I have lots of that. Red, as you know. So I don't really know what to do with it, but it sure is pretty, and I have it in my parlor here where I'm sitting. Do I thrift Carnival Glass? You bet I do. I just cannot say no to that shiny, shimmery. These are pretty valueless pieces here, but I don't know. It's so shiny. This one I think is a punch bowl. I think it's not that big, but I think it's supposed to go in a little stand. I try to put it out and around because what else am I going to do with it? I bought it at Goodwill, and you can't really sell it for any profit, and it's heavy. So it's in my house. So one of the things that Carol was asking about for her I Love Thrifting collab is who we like to go thrifting with. And I mentioned my cousin Alicia already. We go hunting for linens, but my daughter Robin, who I've mentioned in other videos, we love to go antique malls, Goodwill, Salvation Army, anything like that. Here she's coming to the door right now. Well, isn't that funny? She showed up. Well, we love to go thrifting, and one of the things we love to do, especially at antique malls, is to look through old yearbooks and autograph books and read the stories of people. But our favorite thing, our most favorite thing, are recipe books, especially the books from the 50s and the 60s, even into the 70s. They just have the strangest recipes, and the more disgusting and unappealing the photo and the ingredients are, the more we want to get into it until we just are feeling sick reading recipes. And we're going to start making some of those recipes, which is an idea we've had for a long time. For example, crackers and olives stuck in a candle. Look at that. It's hideous and wonderful at the same time. I'm not going to show you too many things out of this book. I'm actually not going to show you anything else out of this book because we're going to make some things out of there. So here's another recipe box that I bought. I sent one like this to my sister for her birthday. I actually had 2 of them, if you can believe that. This Betty Crocker recipe file. It's got the index. Everything's there. The one I gave my sister is exactly like this. It was a miracle I found too. The price says $4, but I know where I bought this, the charity shop where I bought it. I probably paid $2 or less for it. Yeah. So why I thrift is my Auntie Angie. My first time thrifting was getting the brown teapot. When I go thrifting, whenever I can, now I have lots of time, but nowhere to go. Who I go with, mainly my cousin Alicia and my daughter. I do have 2 friends, Joy and Darlene, you know who you are, that I do go thrifting with, and we enjoy that together. And yeah, so that is why I love thrifting. One little story to wrap it up. So during the holidays, my aunties, who both like their jewelry, nice jewelry, would wear their holiday rings or their fancy jewelry. And my Auntie Angie had this, she would wear this beautiful rectangular large blue topaz ring that had 2 little rubies on either side of it. And I always admired it and just remember her with that ring on. And I don't know how many years after she died. She died in 2001, and my Auntie Rose died in 2015. Auntie Angie was 84 and Auntie Rose was 94 each when they died. So about 5 years after Auntie Angie died, I was in a thrift store and I saw a ring. I'm not one to really shop for jewelry, and it reminded me of her ring. So I bought it. It is, I think it's 10 karat gold. I was gonna look at it, but it is 8 or 10 karat. Do they even mark things 8 karat? But it reminded me of her ring. Her ring was a lighter color than that. And of course, this one only fits on my index finger. But I bought it and I wore it. I do wear it sometimes. And then about 5 or 6 years before my Auntie Rose died, she gave me my Auntie Angie's ring. And she told me that my Auntie Angie wanted me to have it. So now I have them both. And you can see the full circle of why I'm thrifting. So that is a long video. I'm gonna have to do a lot of editing. Thank you, Carol, for inviting me to this. I hope I can figure out how to upload the playlist correctly, and tune back in for some more videos of Robin and I making fun food. Ta!